Welcome to Follow Your Heart podcast. This podcast is all about helping you turn your passion into a profitable business and ultimately follow your heart's desires of having a freedom-based lifestyle and manifesting your dream life. We are combining all things business and spirituality on this podcast, so we're going to cover things like marketing, sales, strategy, mindset, finance, and sprinkle it in with a little bit of woo-woo. My name is Bekah Komar, and I am your host and a business and strategy coach. And I am so excited that you've chosen this podcast, and let's jump in. All right, we are live here with the lovely Zoe. Thank you for being on the show. As I said your name, I literally felt like I was pulled into like the vortex. What is life? Like literally, I don't know if I'm tapping into your energy or was the new moon or what, but wow, as soon as I started talking to you, I felt like I started like going off into another planet. Is that your energy right now?
Maybe it was not intentional. The gravitational pull was not conscious.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's shifting right now. I'm loving it. It's quite cosmic. Thank you for being on the show today, Zoe.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be on and to have a chance to talk with you. And this is going to be fun.
It is. I'm excited to see what we're going to chat about. It's always a surprise and a co-creation. So, of course, we're going to talk about some of the amazing skills you've been honing in on as a coach and a spiritual being and student of life. But I'm curious to see where this goes and learn more about you and your story, because I feel like there's a lot that I still don't know, even as a friend.
Yeah, totally. Let's do it.
So before we dive in, I've been making it more of a ritual to start out with a little bit of grounding. And before we started recording, Zoe graciously offered, without a notice, to guide us through that grounding meditation. So I'm going to let you take it away from here.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to do it. So everyone who's listening, this is a great opportunity to just be with yourself for a moment. So if you're in a space where you are safe and comfortable to close your eyes, I would invite you to do so. And if not, if you're driving or otherwise occupied, you can just tune in and follow along. So as the eyes are closing, just taking this opportunity to tune your attention inward, back to yourself. Taking a nice deep breath in through the nose and exhaling through the mouth, maybe making a sound, a sigh, just letting something go. And continue to just follow your breath. The breath is such a beautiful guiding force. It is our life force. And it is a constant that we can always return to when we feel far away from ourselves, a little lost, a little overwhelmed. Bringing our presence and attention back to the breath is such a gift. So go ahead and do that now. And as you breathe, I'd love for you, just from your space of imagination, picture something like a big magnet right in the middle of your head, sort of at your third eye, behind your brows. And imagine that this magnet is going to be pulling all of your energy and your attention back to you. Just pulling it out of anywhere where you were earlier today, thinking about the future. Maybe your energy and attention has been with other people in your life. Maybe there's some demand on you and your space. So go ahead and just call all of that back to you now, using this as an opportunity to be with you, to have all of you. Continuing to breathe as you do this and just noticing how this impacts you physically, energetically. Are things a little quieter? Do you feel a little more present? Maybe nothing is different, and that's fine too, but just take notice. There's a really powerful shift that happens when we take the time to call our energy back to us, to have all of ourselves present. And here in this moment, we are calling our energy back to us so that we can be present for this beautiful conversation between Bekah and I, this energetic connection with you, the listeners. Let's all be here together. Taking a couple more nice deep breaths, maybe the deepest you've taken all day. And whenever you're ready, you can wiggle your fingers and toes, open your eyes, and return to the space.
Yes. That was good. Wow.
I'm glad.
I have a special gift with meditations.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. And you even offer them on your podcast, don't you, sometimes?
I do, yeah. So I have a podcast called The Wisdom Within. And when I first started it, I was starting every episode off with a meditation, sort of similar to that, just a few minutes to center in. And I've since stopped doing it every single episode, and I'm now trying to find other ways to bring my meditations into the world. So now I'm offering them weekly on Instagram and saving them there for people to listen to. And yeah.
That is amazing. It's such a cool gift to give the world. It's just so simple, but yet so impactful. Sorry guys, there's construction going on where I am, so if there's hammering, focus on that magnet.
Yes,
focus on tuning it.
Yes, just be here now with all of it that we got going on.
It's like the ultimate practice of awareness and presence.
Totally, yeah.
But yeah, it's a beautiful to just share that gift of just a quick meditation. And notice that even within my work, I'm getting called to give more freebies of meditations. And so many people have resonated with them, even over just jumping on an IG live and talking for 5 minutes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's something so beautiful about meditation. And I feel like my spiritual journey really took off at lightning speed when I decided to start a meditation practice. And, originally I started in kind of the traditional, seated on a cushion, sort of Zen Buddhist sort of situation. And just the opportunity to be present with my mind and present with what was going on was such a game changer. And I remember I was so resistant to it. It was the kind of thing where it was calling me for a long time, Zoe, you need me, let's do this. And I was putting it off because the idea of just sitting still for an extended period of time and being with my thoughts sounded terrible. And then I remember, I think I was listening to an Oprah Super Soul interview at one point where she was speaking to some spiritual teacher that I don't remember, but he was describing the practice of meditation. And he said something if you want to understand your mind, you have to sit down and observe it. And by doing so, you'll find greater fulfillment and greater ease. And I was like, well, that makes sense.
Oh, yes. It's those little moments where you may have heard it before, but it was that was the time you're ready to hear it. And it's there's so much resistance for me too with the meditation practice, but it was so life-changing. And Super Soul podcast.
So good.
That. So good.
Yeah. And since then, what's been really cool for me in my relationship to meditation is seeing that it doesn't have to be one way. Like, I think as a culture, and certainly as a Western culture, we have this idea that like to be a meditator, you have to be like perfectly still, perfectly upright on like some sort of mountain in the Himalayas, and like you're going to be perfect about it. And what I've found is that meditation can be so many different things. Like it can be in movement, it can be playful, it can be interesting and curious, and it doesn't have to be necessarily total stillness and nothingness. It can be, certainly, if you want it to be, but you can make it whatever you want. And that's really helped me to like grow my love and my relationship to it.
You make such a good point. Yes, yes. And it's a constant reminder for me that like within everything I'm doing, that you can incorporate meditation and a meditative state into it. And yeah, to not put rules and restrictions around when or how it looks. So that's a beautiful reminder.
I think anything that we do with sincere presence can be a meditation.
Snaps for that. Yes. I feel like you're going to be dropping many little nuggets of wisdom on here. It's like, ooh, yes, it's the projector in you. Leading into that, I love how we met. I was just like, as you're talking, reminding myself that it's beautiful that we met through very organically through in person, which rarely happens.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that was super cool and serendipitous. There are no accidents.
Not at all. No. And I'm so grateful for that. Fast forwarding to where we are now. It's growing as well, and we're evolving more. And I love that we can connect on understanding each other from our own design types, along with many other things, and support each other in so many ways, just from showing up at the same place and going intuitively to where we were called.
Yes.
So I'm
that's
excited.
So true. Yeah, that's so true. I think this is such a potent time in the world for individuals who are on a similar path back to the truth of who they are, like an awakening journey to kind of shed anything that tried to tell us who we are and who we're supposed to be, and uncovering the truth of that for ourselves. And there's so many avenues to do that. And you and I share some of them, like human design and spirituality and meditation and all of that. And so it's just so beautiful. It's this kind of sangha, this community, when you're willing to share openly and truthfully and honestly about what you're going through in your journey, you just draw automatically people who are going through the same thing to you, and you feel less alone, and you realize just how beautiful and whole this journey is for all of us, you know?
Well said. I totally agree with that. Yes, I love how we're already starting to go into so many like concepts. Before we keep diving into all of these different avenues we can go, I would love for you to share a little bit about who you are and what you do in the world right now.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm Zoe Graman. I'll start by saying that I am what I am. As far as what I do in the world, I've been on quite a journey for the last, I want to say 2 years, especially, just trying to find my way in the world and really tap into what is my purpose. Like that big capital P purpose, I think is something that eludes so many of us and feels so big. And I spent the majority of my life kind of following the rules, so to speak, and connecting the dots and hitting all of the things that on paper should have said that I am happy and successful and doing things right and my life is great. But I was really unhappy. I was, working different full-time corporate jobs that, I was good at, and there were parts of them that were fine and whatever, but I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't happy. And so through a series of sort of serendipitous, universal invitation kind of events, I found myself really with the courage to pursue a purpose, a path that felt aligned and exciting to me. So, and that path was as a coach. And and it sort of came about in an unexpected way. I was, again, working a full-time corporate job, and I had the opportunity to work with a really incredible executive coach. And that was the first time that I had ever been introduced to the field at all. And he was this really incredible, like, worldly guy. He was a Zen Buddhist. He'd like met the Pope. He was just amazing. But all of the things that he was teaching and his just way of being in the world, I was like, I want to do this. Like, you come in and you help guide people to like be better and work together more efficiently and effectively. And I was like, I don't know what this sorcery is, but like, I need to do it. So that was sort of my gateway, my invitation to the world of coaching. And from there, after being laid off from that job, like totally out of nowhere, out of the blue, I took that as an invitation from the universe to follow this coaching path. So I enrolled in a coaching certification program that's been a year in the making. And alongside of that, I sort of, again, through the meditation and just diving into spirituality and into my purpose, I allowed myself, because really it had to be an allowance, a permission slip, to follow my curiosity into the more intuitive, energetic realms. And I found out, again, like out of the blue, that there was a psychic school in the Portland area. And I was like, as soon as I found out about that, I was super intrigued. I was like, I didn't know you could go to school for being a psychic.
Yeah, right?
So I found out and basically signed up that day. And, fast forward a year and a half later, I've done like 2-year-long intensive programs there. I'm currently enrolled in an advanced training there. But essentially, their teaching there that I just so align with is that we all have psychic gifts. We all have energetic, intuitive gifts, and we're just disconnected from them. Again, because generations and generations of society being like, it's dangerous, it's not safe, it's, people were burned at the stake for this kind of thing. It coming out and being in tune with your energetic gifts has been seen as crazy for so long. And so most of us have shut it off at a soul and body level. And so enrolling in these courses, it was really me tapping back into and uncovering those gifts that I already had that I just had lost access to. So that has been such a journey of uncovering things about myself and just uncovering these gifts. So fast forward to now, I have my own business where I'm incorporating both the coaching aspect and the sort of intuitive, spiritual, energetic aspect into an offering that for the first time I really feel like is my, capital P purpose, that I'm offering the world really fully from my soul, from my heart, what feels true to me and what I know is really powerful and impactful work that other people can benefit from. So long story short, long story long, that's what I do.
Well said. And just hearing you talk about your stories and making me very emotional and like I'm about to cry. It's just amazing to see and to talk to you, even, I don't even know when we even last met in a coffee shop, and how much has already like manifested because you're following your capital P purpose, and the confidence and just the trust and just knowing of you're on your path and your like calling is beautiful to see unfold.
Thank you. I appreciate that reflection. Yeah. I mean, that coffee shop date was back in January, and it feels like, I don't know about you, but it feels like lifetimes.
Yes, really.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's so many things we could catch up on in between there. And I want to touch on a couple of things that are unique to you. And this is something I get a lot of people asking about this question or considering, do they go the path of just starting their business or really honing in on their skills and going to school? And what I love about you is you valued education, going through a proper coaching program and going through a proper psychic school. So what made you decide to go to school versus just practicing on your own?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as far as the psychic school stuff, when I embarked on that journey, it was in no way that I was like, I'm going to make this a career. It was simply out of curiosity and interest and like my soul telling me like, this is something you need to do. So it was just sort of a happy accident and kind of like a bonus cherry on top that it's now something that I can turn into an offering for the world. So in that sense, I wasn't planning on going to school for that reason. As far as coaching goes, and to be quite honest, I think I'm the kind of person who I thrive with a little bit of structure, with a little bit of guidance. And honestly, for most of my life, I was not trusting of myself. and my own abilities. And so a lot of times I found myself throughout my life falling back on, having someone else show me the way or telling me how to do it, for better or worse, a lot of times for worse. But as far as coaching goes, I really felt like I wanted to have a framework. I wanted to have a community. I wanted to have some sort of guidance to be sure that I was showing up in the fullest expression of a coach in the best way that I possibly could. And to me, that felt like going through a training program, but it had to be one that I was really aligned with. So I took a decent amount of time to research a lot of different programs, and finally ended up on the one that I was like, this is who I want to be. Like how they are teaching, like this is how I want to be in the world. And I have taken so much from the experience. I was in the class with 19 other individuals. So it's so much of it is a solo journey, but having the community of people who were going through the same thing and we could support each other. I don't know that I could have had the courage, to be honest, to do this and go out on my own if I didn't have the support and the guidance of the community of the program. And now, having gone through it, we learned a particular methodology and way to coach. But now on the other side, I'm so much more in tune with myself and trusting myself that I'm able to see, okay, I'm going to take this piece of what I learned and use that, and I'm going to leave this. So it's not like I have to do it the way that I learned, but so much of what I learned, I can bring in, like what feels like it's of me, I can bring into my own coaching practice. So it's been a beautiful experiment in that way too, to be like, yes to this, no to this, take a little bit of this, leave that, and turn it into an offering that really feels like mine.
That's a good reminder too, is to not put so much pressure on like, okay, if I do this path or get this training, that then I am stuck in this methodology, or this is the only thing I can do with it, versus you've incorporated two different modalities, because like was it life coaching? What's the proper title?
So that's okay. This is the thing. Life coaching as a term has never really resonated for me. There's something about it that doesn't feel quite right. The methodology that I'm trained in is called integral coaching. So technically I'm what would be called a certified integral coach, but to people who don't know the school or the methodology, it's like, what is that? So I'm still sort of on the search for the right term for what it is that I do. The word guide feels aligned. Yeah. But I've been saying intuitive coach, intuitive guide. Yeah. It's still a work in progress.
I love that you're bringing that up, because it's a conversation I've had with a couple of people that, like, a lot of us are feeling resistant to the word coach because we're not necessarily coaching people. Sometimes we are the guide, sometimes we are the mentor, the friend, even the student, right? And a teacher-student dynamic. And it's this conflict I've seen even internally where it's like, okay, the branding marketing side, it's easier to follow the coaching path and to market myself as that. But then internally, I don't know if it feels aligned always. Mm-hmm, Did you feel that way as well?
Yeah. And there's something so powerful about language and labeling things. And I think oftentimes when we put labels on things, we can sort of put ourselves in a box. Unfortunately, that's kind of how our society works, is like, what are you? What kind of coach are you? And my favorite way to describe what I do is like, I get to be on someone's team. Like that is my role. And that's what I love about it. It's like really feeling like I'm on someone's team. And I don't know that there's a perfect term for that.
Yeah. And guiding them, like, I think for you, there's so many different elements to you and who you are, but as a projector, it's like, I've noticed a lot of my clients and friends who are projectors and mentors, coaches, guides, like that's literally it. Like as a guide, you're not on your own. You're usually like with a team and like giving them a little bit of guidance and direction within that team. And not even just that one person, it's usually you're working with others, or it impacts other people too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you bring up the projector thing too, because this has been a really like lit up, charged energy for me in the last few months of trying to figure out how to run my business and be an entrepreneur as a projector. Yeah, it's a spicy, juicy one.
Please share some insights. I mean, and I'm sure this will help even non-projectors, but what have you discovered?
Yes. So, and again, I say this humbly, it's still very much a work in progress. There are still so many things that I'm figuring out, but I'm someone who has always been really deep in my masculine energy and in like productivity and like must be busy, must do all the things, must cross all the things off the to-do list. And I was in a way really matching to society, right? Because society really rewards that. But since learning more about myself, learning what it means to be a projector, I'm recognizing that rest is not the absence of work. It's like maybe the most important part of work. And maybe work isn't the right word, but it's like we have to rest in order to allow things to come through us the way that they want to.
Oh, hey girl, hey. Thanks for listening to this brief interruption, but I have something important to share with you. The Passion to Profit course is now open and accepting applications. So if you are desiring to launch your dream business and create a profitable online coaching business, or you already are an existing online coach and you're looking to grow and scale and attract more of your dream clients to eventually ditch your 9-to-5 job or corporate job, then this course might be the perfect match for you. So if you're interested in applying to see if you're a good fit, then go ahead and go to the show notes and click on the link in the show notes to apply now. And we hope to see you on the other side of the course to really step into your true calling and manifest the freedom-based lifestyle you've always desired. And thanks for listening, and let's get back to the show now.
And that's been a hard pill for me to swallow as somebody who likes to be busy and feeling like I'm being productive. And I will say, this is why this has been so lit up over the last, 3 months or so with the whole COVID pandemic and everything, because it's forced me to slow down. It's forced me to take a break. And I have been more productive and I've been more in tune and in touch and like intuitively guided than I ever have, because I have so much more rest and space in my life. It's crazy.
Please share more. This is a hot topic right now that's coming up for myself and my clients. I've been talking to a lot of people about. As an entrepreneur, like I've spoke to so many dozens of people online where ever since COVID, they were redirected on their path. Like, they maybe had like a 9-to-5 job or a part-time job, and that got pulled under them, away from them. And now they have this space and time to be able to create their coaching business. And while everyone else in the world is resting because they have less on their plate, a lot of people in our work, in our industry, are being called to step up more. So It's this pressure, it's push and pull of wanting to rest like everyone else, but feeling this like fire and passion to be productive and to start pursuing our passion, our purpose. So how do you find to balance that? And what are some tips to find the rest amongst the productivity?
Oh man, yes. That is such a juicy one. And I went through waves of this. So like when COVID first hit, I definitely like tuned into that energy in the online space that was like, at dawn we ride, like this is the time for us to show up. And like, and I was like, oh my God, yes, I'm doing it. Yeah. I was born to be here and do this. While that's probably true, I like burned myself out within like 5 days of just being like, okay, I got to figure out like how best to show up and like, let's do it. And then it like literally for the week after that, I was like laid the F out in my bed. I couldn't like get up to like change my clothes. I was just so tired. I was sleeping like 13 hours a day. So I went from like being in overload of like, must do it, must show up, to like, I can't do anything. And I think I found a sort of homeostasis since then. But it's a moment to moment thing. And it really takes me being very honest with myself of when my mind wants to tell me, you have to do X, Y, Z today. You didn't finish this thing. You need to get to work. And me stopping and being like, okay, body, what do you need? Because at the end of the day, our bodies have so much wisdom. It is freaking insane. They know exactly what we need. And chances are, like all of you listening probably know what this is like when you're in the middle of working on something and you're just like zoning out, you're having a hard time focusing. Maybe your eyes, your head are starting to hurt and your mind is starting to wander, but you're like, no, I must power through. The work that you're producing, the output that you're producing from that state, from that energetic space is not going to be as good as it could be if you would just pause and give yourself the rest that your body is asking for.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's so much about just like, okay, body, what do you need in the moment? Maybe it's like, I need a snack, or like, I need a nap, or I need to go outside and just breathe some fresh air for a minute. Or like, for me, it's been like, I have been on my computer for 8 hours straight and I'm going cross-eyed. I need to go look at the sky for a while.
Yeah.
And the tricky part is being willing to give that to yourself, because I, as a recovering perfectionist, and I know many of you listening are probably in the same boat, it's like, it goes really against that nature to give ourselves a break, because then this sort of like societal programming comes in of like laziness or like nothing is going to get done. But what I found is like, when you honor your energy, you honor your energetic boundaries, your highs and lows, that things always get done. And they get done in a more aligned and easeful way when you're not forcing them.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you for that reminder. And it's like, it's something that I'm constantly reminding myself, and my coach is reminding me, and it takes some exhaustion, like you said. Like, I had that extreme high of 5 days, and then like after, just wanting to sleep nonstop for like 13 hours a day. I totally experienced that. And I'm sure people are laughing listening to this, because they probably felt the same thing collectively, with the energy of like, it's our time to shine. And then, okay, let's take care of ourselves. Let's practice what we preach.
And I found too, like, even sometimes throughout this whole experience, that I'll hit points where I'm like, you're not resting well enough. Like that same taskmaster voice of like, you must do more, you must do better, still comes in, but it's like, even in regards to rest. And it's like, oh my God, can you just be quiet and let me be?
Yep. Totally relate to that too. That's hilarious. Yep. I want to dive into some things that I see as very unique to you. And one, we talked about you going to psychic school. Another thing is, before we dive into this, are you providing aura readings still? Is that something that you were doing?
I am. Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
So, what I'm doing, and actually for the month of May, I'm not sure when this episode is going to come out, but I'm offering sliding scale intuitive energy sessions. And basically that is where I enter a meditative state, and I look at the energy in your space, in your aura, your energetic field, through like my third eye, essentially, through mental image pictures, and describe the energy that's there. And what happens during those readings is it really highlights things in your space that are not yours, like programming that you've been living under. We call them pictures in the way that I was trained. There's like a picture that you're living in that isn't yours. Or if an energy that doesn't feel good to you, like this was one of the biggest revelations to me in this energetic psychic work, is this idea that if it doesn't feel good to you, it's not your energy. Meaning your energy will always feel good to your body. That doesn't mean you're always going to be happy, but that means like if you are really sad, that sadness is going to feel like a release. It's going to feel cathartic. It might be challenging, but it will feel good to you. Your anger will feel like a catalyst. It will feel like a fire. It'll feel important and positive. But when we experience energy that isn't ours, it's like when you're in that funk, or you're feeling hopeless, or just like really frustrated and like you can't get out from underneath it. That isn't yours. And that was such a huge revelation to me. And so in these readings and the healings that I do is helping to be like, hey, that's not yours. We can move that out. We can get that out of your space and replace it with something that is yours, with what is your truth. And it's super, super powerful work. It's totally changed my life. I mean, I, in my training, have received hundreds of these sorts of readings myself. And like, I tell you, from the time I started the training until now, my entire life looks completely different. And I owe it very much to the power of this energy work. So long story short, yes, I do offer those readings.
It's so unique. It's like nothing I've ever experienced before. And I mean, obviously there's so many different like modalities for healing and for discovery and awareness. But I like that it wasn't just a reading. So it wasn't just like having an Akashic record reading or a past life where you just know information. But I love that you were able to go in there and make some adjustments to that energy that's not ours. And so it was like the full package of like, it's something you have to experience. Like I can't even explain it in my own words, but I remember like we did this back in January, February. You offered me one when I was in Costa Rica, and I wrote like 5 pages of notes. And now I'm really curious to see and go back to what you read and see what manifested and what supported me on the journey through that.
That's a super fun thing to do, is to go back and look at the notes from the readings. I did that as well. And oftentimes when I like to call these readings that I do a hello to your spirit. Like it's me tuning into the spirit of you and saying, hello, like, who are you really? What is your truth? What do you want me to see? What do you want me to know? What do you want me to communicate to this person in body? And so oftentimes people will leave these readings like feeling really seen and validated in a way that they aren't able to in normal life, or that they themselves haven't been able to see, because it's like such a neutral, energetic perspective that I'm able to look at. So it's just so much fun to be able to see people in that way. And oftentimes when I tune into the spirit of someone, it's like saying hello to their next step. It's like reading them from their next step. So sometimes in a reading, you'll get something that's like, yeah, that feels right, but I don't know if I'm quite there yet. And then like, if you think back a month later, you're like, oh my God, that was where I was headed. That was like what was happening. So it's just super cool.
It really is. Yeah, that's really like how I felt through that process of the reading. And what also stood out to me is I'm always like an observer and wanting to learn, like, how can I bring more of my gifts online? And what really inspires me about you, and I think what helped us being in a setting with others in school and training, is the confidence and trust that whatever you see through your third eye and your psychic abilities is what is going to come through. And this is something I struggle with, and I'm sure many people listening, as they're tapping more into their gifts, are feeling like I feel like I'm questioning myself sometimes when things come through. So how do you speak to that concern?
Oh,
or that challenge?
That's such a great question. And it was such a process for me. And I think I really owe the greater trust that I have in myself now and in my intuition to this process of learning how to do this. Because when you enter into this school, and I really credit Portland Psychic School for creating such a safe and beautiful container for this all to happen, because it's like, you go and you just start talking about like weird stuff that you're seeing. And it's like, is this real? Am I really doing this? Is this what's happening? Like the whole thing is like, I don't know if this is real. But throughout the process, you really learn to just trust what you're seeing, because I've never had a reading where someone's like, none of this makes sense, that none of this landed. Everyone's like, it resonates with them on some level, some super deeply. And so that's helpful to be validated in that way, because a lot of times when I'm reading something, I have no idea if it is valuable or important to the person. I'm just saying what I see. But you have to trust that you're seeing something for a reason. And it was such a process for me. Again, these were year-long trainings that I was in. And it took probably like 7 months into a year until I first started to really be like, okay, maybe I am actually doing this. Like maybe I am actually seeing something. And I myself, again, having received readings myself and seeing the change in my own life, I was like my own sort of case study. I was a great example and evidence of how, having energy said hello to in this way is so impactful. And now when I give readings professionally on my own, it's like that sort of energy of invalidation is gone. It's like, I trust what I see because I know I'm seeing it for a reason. And that has extrapolated out into so many other areas of my life.
That's encouraging. And I like how you said you were like your own case study of like practicing and receiving as well. Right?
And I would like to offer to anyone listening who deals with the same sort of thing that we've both dealt with, of doubting yourself and am I really connecting or whatever, at the core, it's when the mind starts coming in, or again, that energy that isn't yours, that's like, what you're doing doesn't make sense. What you're doing is weird. Like, no, you're not really seeing anything. That's, if it doesn't feel good to you, it's not yours, which means your truth is that you know what you're seeing, and you need to trust yourself at the end of the day. So many beautiful things happen when we start to trust ourselves. The whole world opens up.
Yeah. For our world and the world collectively.
Yes.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you for giving us that wisdom and confidence and reminder. As we wrap up, I just wanted to know, like, what are some other things that you feel like you're really helping your clients with, and others like that may be unique to how you coach?
Yeah. Thank you for that. So a big thing that comes up with my one-on-one clients is perfectionism, fear of rejection, and essentially like living life the way that they think other people will find acceptable. And this is like the number one thing that I am most passionate about, that I get really fired up about, where it's like, we need to stop caring what other people think about us. We need to stop. It boxes us in. It keeps us small. It keeps us from finding fulfillment and joy and like living a life that is really ours. And how sad is that, right? So I love supporting clients, especially I find that I tend to attract people who are in a space of transition or awakening where they've had this realization of like, how I'm doing this is not me and it doesn't feel good. And I know there's something more out there and I know that there is a better way that I want to feel. And that's like my favorite point to come in and be like, yes, you're right. Your spirit is not leading you astray. There is a better way to feel. And it is by tapping into and trusting who you are and releasing everything that isn't you. So breaking through perfectionist patterns, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown, like trust is a huge thing that I really work on with my clients. Trust again in yourself, like we were just talking about, and then trust in the universe as a whole and the idea that you are always supported and that every single thing in your life that has happened, that is coming your way is on purpose. It is for your evolvement, it's for your growth. You're supported in the exact way that you need to be. And so in these one-on-one coaching relationships, I get to be on someone's team as they go through that journey back to themselves. And it is the single most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life. It's so beautiful to see the transformation in people. And I just really believe that, and this is something that I say in the intro to my podcast, but it really rings true, is like, I really believe that the world will be a better place when we stop being other people and start being ourselves. I find that I am most drawn to the individuals who are unapologetically themselves and confidently themselves. Like, you know what that feels like all of you listening know what it feels like to be around the energy of somebody who like doesn't care what other people think and is living for themselves. And it's such a magnetic, beautiful energy. And imagine what the world would be like if everybody was that way. So that's kind of my mission, is to help get as many people as possible to that point.
Oh, that's a beautiful mission and vision, and I totally am on that train too. And that the one thing that's interesting is some people, like where you're at as a guided mentor, you've been through a lot of your own inner work, see that as beautiful and empowering others to do that. But then also it's triggering to some people when they see someone unapologetically being themselves. It's like, no, I don't like that about you, right?
Yep. Oh yeah. And that's something that I work on a lot on the intuitive energy side, is like oftentimes energetically we can get punished by other people who are like, I want what you have, or like, you can't have that if I can't have it, or there's competition or whatever. And all that is just energy, right? And it doesn't have to dictate your expression of yourself and how you move through the world. Like it's something that's coming from somebody else. It's not yours, but it's very real. It's very real. It definitely triggers people.
Very much so. And I like that you bring it back again, like full circle to it is all just energy. And using that same concept, how are you working through the perfectionist with your healing modalities and your training?
Yeah. And again, this is a really charged one for me too, because like I say, I'm still a recovering perfectionist. I'm in no way over that hurdle, but I find, and you might relate to this, that I can always support other people even better than I can support myself oftentimes. But really just one thing that I like to do is inviting individuals to do something imperfectly on purpose. Like every day, do one thing imperfectly. And so for me, this is a challenge that I gave myself. I'm really into grammar. Like I've always been really good at spelling and like punctuation. And I like read all my stuff 15 times before I send it to make sure it's perfect. And I was like, okay, what if I intentionally misspell a word? Or something silly like, there, like the 3 different formats. What if I intentionally choose the wrong there? And it's like, it's so funny. Like even something so small and silly, like my body reacts to it. It's like, oh my God, I don't know. I don't think I can do that. But the more that we can show ourselves that it's safe to be imperfect and it's not the end of the world, like the more easily we can do that. And I also love to invite my clients to look at other people in their lives, people that they look up to. And in reality, are those people perfect? Or do you admire them because they're real? Because they're vulnerable? Like vulnerability is strength. There's so much courage that comes along with being vulnerable. And you don't have to be very courageous to put on a perfect image all the time. It doesn't take that much courage because, again, you're not being vulnerable. There's a lot of power in just being who you are with all your faults and imperfections and letting that be known to the world.
Yes, I love those different mindsets and also practices and challenges. I like the combination of all of those things people can take away and implement right now. Two things that came up for me when you're saying all that. Number one, well, I love using the term imperfectly perfect, like we all are, and aspects. And also the irony, like your last name is almost the same spelling as grammar.
I never thought about that. That's really funny. Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah. Little synchronicities and not so coincidences.
Yes, there's so many of them all the time.
Always, yeah. Wonderful. I want to dive more into a lot of things, but just for sake of time, I'm going to wrap up with just a couple last fire round questions intuitively. I'm going to ask you, what are 2 books that you feel you want to share with the world right now to recommend reading?
Ooh, I love this question because I'm reading some good ones. So one book that I just finished is called The Fuck It Diet by Carolyn Dooner. And it's a book about essentially if you have spent a life, I've had a complicated relationship with food my entire life. And this book is really about saying F it to all of that and getting in touch with, there's an aspect of intuitive eating to it, but it goes much more deeper than that. And she's just a really funny like comedian, and she goes about it in a really irreverent way. So I highly recommend that to anybody who has any sort of food rules or disordered eating in their past, or just a complicated relationship with food. It was so freeing and fun to read, and really made me think about how we're all kind of mired in diet culture in our world. Mm-hmm. It's like a $70 billion industry, and we're all just like swimming in the water of it. And it impacts our ability to love ourselves as we are. Yeah. And like taking our power back and saying, F it, is just such a powerful thing. So that was one that I finished recently that I highly recommend. And then another book that I haven't finished yet, but I am partway through, is called Existential Kink by, I think it's Carolyn Elliott. And it's essentially a book about shadow work and how in order to, live the lives that we desire, we have to not only accept the darker, more shadowy parts of ourselves, but celebrate them and like get really into them. Like she has this idea that like the shadow parts of ourselves are like kinky and like interesting and cool. And it's really fascinating and really fun to read. And I so resonate with the idea that we can create and have more fulfilling lives when we allow all of ourselves to be at the table rather than shunning parts of ourselves that we feel like aren't good or, will be judged in the eyes of others. So again, I'm not done with that, but so far so good. And I've heard rave reviews from friends about it too.
Those are some two intriguing books to me. I'm really diving into, the shadow work is always present for me, and it's like in waves. And also I've also had a challenging relationship with food my entire life. So I'm really curious to read that book as well. And yeah, those are awesome. Never heard of either of them. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
This kind of ties into the question I do sometimes ask. What was the last meal you ate?
Oh, let's see.
For breakfast.
I haven't had breakfast yet. What did I eat for dinner last night? Oh, okay. So in my house, we make roasted broccoli, but we call it crack broccoli because it's A, really addictive, and B, you like roast it in the oven at like 450 degrees. So it gets like crispy and kind of crackly. Ooh. It's really, really good. So I had a big plate of that and a salad with, I love sweet potatoes, so some baked sweet potato and hemp seeds. And it was yummy.
That sounds delicious. I'm like hungry, and I'm like, I don't know why I asked that question because I'm just more hungry. Crack broccoli, yes. Oh, yes. I totally do the same thing, like where it's almost like burnt but not, and with a good seasoning and oil on it.
Oh, so good. It's like broccoli chips, kind of.
Yes, delish. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And what is like a mantra or affirmation that you have been resonating with, or that you live by?
Oh man, there's a couple of them that are coming flashing into my mind. The one that's sticking is a Ram Dass quote, which is, "I am loving awareness." So I am not a personality. I am just loving awareness, and bringing myself back to the idea, like when I'm going about my life and I find myself in judgment, because we so easily fall into judgment of other people, of situations, of the world. If I find myself in judgment, or I find myself like future tripping, like rehearsing conversations in my head that haven't even happened yet, or like I'm having strained relationships with other people or with myself, coming back to this idea that I am loving awareness, and I can simply just be in observation of everything that is around me from a place of love. And it really stems back to this idea of basic goodness that has been showing up for me a lot in the last couple of months, which is like a Buddhist principle that there is basic goodness in the world, that everything, even the pain, the suffering, all of it, there is basic goodness to it at the end of the day. And if we can tune into that and just be loving awareness throughout our lives, oh, like my body just relaxes even thinking about it, right? Because we can just release all of the resistance and the pushing and shoving and all of that energy that goes on if we can just be in that loving awareness space. So that's what I would offer.
You know, there's like so much wisdom and truth in something when it makes you take a deep breath. Like you said, the calmness, I was like, yes, relax into that truth. Like feel it.
Yes. Feel it in your body.
Loving, I am loving awareness. That's a good I am statement as well, and a good mantra. Thank you. Thank you so much for being yourself and shining your light and like truly deep wisdom. You're an amazing teacher, and like there's some unique things about you which I love. Is like, well, one, like your path is like really, you've become a student and a constant learner, and your meditations are out of this world. Like you have this like tone that's masculine and feminine, and it really, really resonates, I think, with both like the feminine and masculine energy. And I love it. I love it. I love it. I love everything you're working on.
Thank you so much, Bekah, for your kind words. I really appreciate that. It's been so fun to talk to you. I feel like we could go on for hours. And I'm just so grateful that our paths crossed. You're such an inspiration to me, and following your path and inspiring people like us who are on spiritual journeys to continue on and to deepen into it. So thank you for showing up in the world and doing that work as well. I appreciate you.
You're so welcome. I received that. And to close things out, we will link this up in the show notes, but just for the sake of the show, can you share where you hang out the most and how people can follow you?
Of course. Yeah. So I mentioned that I have a podcast called The Wisdom Within, which Bekah is going to be on here very soon, which I'm excited about. So you can find that Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, all the things. And then I hang out mostly on Instagram, which is just my name at Zoe Graman, ZoeGraman. You can catch me there along with the guided meditations. And if you're interested in an intuitive energy session or coaching, you can contact me through there.
Awesome. And just for the sake of knowing what you have going on, I will get this one launched, if I can get my editor to it, very shortly. So we can get that ready so people can take advantage of that in May.
Very cool. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Zoe.